Welcome back to another episode of Kate and Isaiah Living Large. I'm Isaiah.
And I'm Kate. And today we're going to talk about how sometimes weight gain is symptomatic of other issues. In this case particular, we have special guest Alisha, who is Isaiah's cousin, on the episode. We're super pumped to have her here today. Hi, Alisha.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. Alisha has quite a story to share. And I'll let her take it away. Why don't you talk about a little bit about your story? Like, you are visiting here from Alberta right now. What brings you to this point?
To New Brunswick.
Yeah, to New Brunswick.
New Brunswick. So you're visiting New Brunswick. So you're born and raised in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
And you moved to the great land of milk and honey, Alberta. I think that's what it's called.
Is that what it's called?
No.
They don't call it that. They call it oil country.
Ah.
Yeah.
Alberta.
Yeah. Out west when you were 19. And that was 18 years ago, because I love outing people's ages.
It's fine. Age has never been a thing that's bothered me, actually.
No, well, that's good. It's a silly thing to have bother you. It's going to happen regardless whether it does or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it would tie in nicely with what we're talking about today anyway. So I moved out there when I was 19 with $20 in a suitcase. Okay. I know it sounds like a country song, but this is the truth. I had $20 in a suitcase and I moved out there. I was like deep in the middle of, I was a party girl, but didn't really realize that I had an addiction or that I was dealing with anything like that. But I was pretty deep into my addiction, like at that point, kind of doing every single day. And actually, my family wasn't very happy with me. I think they had enough of my shit. And that, like, my family was kind of my safety net for a really long time. Like, my family meant everything to me. Having them that, like, disappointed in me and that, I just left. I left and I was like, I need to, change my life. And it changed, but not the way that I expected it to. But yeah, so it's coming home summer for a visit, not addicted, 115 days sober.
Super exciting.
That's pretty cool.
Congratulations on that. So 115 days, about 4 months, or give or take, sober. And the 18 years after you moved to Alberta. What happened between then and now in as much detail as you want to share?
In as much detail as you can fit in 25 minutes.
No.
Who's watching this? Like, I do not care to share any of my story, Isaiah, but do you want me to hold it back a little bit?
You are good to speak your mind.
Yeah. So, okay. So like I said, I went out there with like hopes of changing my life drastically. Ended up getting into sex work. Oddly stopped doing coke. That was the thing that made me stop. But then eventually, I mean, it just kind of comes with the life, kind of got back into it, drinking all of the time. I wasn't happy. Like, there was more cons to it than pros for me. But yeah, I was in it for about 5 years and then ended up getting myself out, ended up actually working for an organization helping other women that wanted to get out of the sex trade, sex industry, however. But and actually ended up working with Paul Brandt, who was like my first childhood crush. Wow, that is so embarrassing to admit.
He had a great voice.
Oh my God, my heart has history.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul.
Oh, so good.
My little 11-year-old heart.
I know, a deep voice. It killed me.
But yeah, I got to go work for his organization. Like, I went all over Canada. I share my story pretty openly. But the thing is there was still so much that I was dealing with and like wasn't really ready for. And so I was still drinking really heavy, like, but still not recognizing that it was a problem.
So you were in the situation where you're like, wow, I've made so much progress in my life. I've done all this work on myself. I'm not a party girl. I'm not working in the sex trade. Not that there's anything wrong with working in the sex trade if you're doing it for the right reasons and feeling good about yourself. Like, I have no...
Sex work is work.
That's right.
I have no moral issue with that. Not that it's my place to have a moral issue with that. Nobody should. Sex work is work. but you were not in a good place when you began that based on what you just said. So you're doing this, but you're still drinking all the time. Everybody, or not everybody, but many people drink. And so tell us a little bit about like how normalized that was. Like tell, your day-to-day life, you were working, you're doing all this good work, feeling, how are you feeling?
Well, I mean, it was kind of, coming, because the work was hard. Like, because we were doing like rescue a lot of the times. I worked in the court system, so I was like seeing the worst of the worst, like stuff that you see on true crime shows was like, that was my life. And that was what I was like doing for, like I said. And so I'd come home and pour myself a glass of wine just to unwind. A lot of people do that. So, okay, this is normal. This is normal. That turned into a bottle a night. That would sometimes turn into 2 bottles. But then you'd go to these big events where like everyone's like, oh my God, you're such an amazing person. You're so brave for sharing your story. But like,
and you are.
Yeah, yes.
That is a true fact.
But inside, like something still didn't feel right. But you'd go to these events and like there's wine on the table, like there's drinks are free. Everybody there is rich and fancy and drinking. So so I'm going to do the same thing. So it took me a really long time to like realize like, oh, a problem.
And what prompted you at that first juncture? Because you said you got sober once before this most. What was the prompt in that moment?
Yeah. So March of 2021, I got a phone call from my mom, which is the worst phone call I've ever received in my life, saying, hey, Alisha, Jonathan's gone. Jonathan was my little brother, and he died of drug and alcohol poisoning. And he struggled for so long. Like, it's in the family. Like, my father would, like, his father, like, he struggles as well. And I dealt with it. I think like a lot of people, like when you hear that, the first thing you're just like, I need a drink kind of a thing, right? I was actually already drunk when I got the phone call. But yeah, I drank for 3 months straight, and I do not remember those first 3 months. Grief can do that to you as well.
Grief can do that. Definitely. And, for time reference, March 2021, we're 1 year into pandemic, which nobody likes to talk about or remember anymore, but that was a pretty serious time. There were lockdowns left, right, and center, maybe fewer in Alberta than there were here in New Brunswick. Politics. But
yeah.
And for full disclosure, Jonathan, we realized as we started recording this podcast the first time before I had to stop it, which is the first time that's ever happened, realized that Alisha's brother Jonathan was also a friend of mine. And not this is about me at all, because it's not, but it was a really really powerful realization over the course of this silly little podcast about weight loss, that it was going to be much deeper than that today. So you don't remember the first 3 months, March, April, May 2021. You have a son, right?
I do. He's going to be 6 next.
Going to be 6 next month. So you're a mom, and you're obviously caregiving at this moment as well. Like
attempting,
not an easy time, and you're married, and your husband's helping you along. What kind of reaction was he having?
My husband?
Yeah.
I remember saying like, we need to phone your mom. Like, I don't think that I can do life right now, because I couldn't even take care of myself. I couldn't remember what day it was. And, he knew my brother too, right? And they had gotten super close towards the end of it. And so it was hard for him. Like, I take care of the family. I hold the house down. Like,
yeah. You are in charge.
I am in charge. And like, that was my show. And so for me to kind of completely fall off, like, it just changed everything. And so, but that was kind of, actually, it was my birthday, Isaiah. Remember we had the drag queens and we did it all online? Because again, the pandemic. That night, you would remember the night better than me. And yeah, like I passed out by 4.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, it was late here, so, but yeah, it was early in Alberta.
Like anybody, I mean, Isaiah knows me. Obviously, he's my cousin. He's grown up our whole lives together. I again, always been the party girl, always a big drinker, but like it was getting to a different point. Like I had an entire thing of Why can't I think of the name of it now? Oh my God. 4 months of no drinking, and now I forget what they're called.
Moonshine?
Oh, Patron. I had like a whole okay, we call them quarts here. My God.
Yeah.
So I had like a whole quart of Patron by like 4 o'clock by myself. And that's where it was kind of like, okay, like what's going on now? You know, and it was 2 days later. So I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Done. I have to change my relationship with alcohol. That was the first time.
Yeah. That's an incredible realization to make. So quit drinking. Then all of a sudden the feelings come, I would imagine.
No, surprisingly, because I'm an overachiever, or if I'm going to do something, I'm going all the way in.
I get it.
So I was going to be all the way sober. Everything was going to be about me being sober, but that was it. It wasn't about me like actually getting better. It wasn't about me dealing with like the death. It wasn't about any of that. So all I did was stop drinking. I didn't like get help. I didn't do any of that other stuff. So after the like quote unquote 111 days, which I did have like 3 drinks during, it just kind of all like came piling back.
Right.
As it does, and probably bigger and badder than ever before.
Oh, worse. Like it was 3 times, like 3 times worse than it was before.
And meanwhile, for people who have no idea what addiction struggle looks like, you working this whole time?
So I had to quit where I was working. I thought that I could go back, but I was working at the overdose prevention site. So it was safe injection site. So it was actually in Alberta. People can come and use their drugs. But I mean, we had bringing people back to life all of the time. And I didn't. It was just too hard. Like I didn't want to go and do the thing.
No,
right. It'd definitely be like a trigger, right? That's huge.
In like the worst way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not working, you're doing this thing. What happened next? Meanwhile, to bring it back to not the point of the podcast, but the reason Isaiah and I have this podcast. Meanwhile, you're also gaining weight.
Yeah. So the weight gain case. So this is actually, I didn't realize it until we're like kind of talking about it right now, like fully realize it, because I wasn't taking care of myself at all. Like I wasn't eating. Like during the first part of it, I wasn't eating. I like shower, like basic life things were just like not on my priority list. And again, not dealing with things. Come around to this time and, you know, got the help. I have a group that I go to, like a women's group that I go to. I do readings. I have like a sober app. Like I talk about it so much. It's probably super irritating to people, but now that I'm dealing with it, like now that I'm actually having to feel the grief, like, you know, all of that is piling on. It's like I kind of replaced one thing with the other. So like now, like, oh, if I'm sad or if I can't deal with something, like now I'm just eating. And the sugar.
The
sugar thing is rude, but that's also a symptom. Like it is a symptom. When you cut out alcohol, like a lot of people start craving sugar. And yeah, so I realized like, oh my God, this is the heaviest I've ever been. And I'm just replacing one addiction.
I mean, arguably a shorter term, better one, but something you'll also at some point will catch up. But, and that brings us to what prompted you to get sober 114 days ago?
I'm gonna do AA talk now, even though like I'm not in AA, but these are things you'll hear. But good for people that do it. That's they always say when you realize your life has become unmanageable. Like I was sitting there on the couch, passed out by like 6 o'clock because I had just drank like 2 massive bottles of wine, maybe some gin, maybe some tequila, you know, and I was just like super short with my son, like just not really present with my husband, just tired all the time, not eating well, not exercising. And I just woke up one morning and I was like, I need help. Like I have to get help or I'm going to end up like my brother.
That's powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a powerful realization to come with. And day to day, how are you coping?
This time it's been harder. Like, even though I have way more support now, which I like really say, like, if I didn't have my groups and all of that stuff, there's no way I'd be 115 days in. But it's harder this time.
Yeah, feeling the feelings.
Feeling the
Yeah.
feelings.
And this is your first time back to New Brunswick being sober. So I'm sure this must be a pretty, we haven't even thought about it.
Great point, Isaiah. Great point. No, I have thought about it multiple times. Like, I had to have a safety plan coming here. Like, I was calling everybody. I was like, listen, here's what I need from you. Like, had to talk to Michael like every single day about it. Like, working through things, like having a plan, because this is the place where all the things have happened that are my triggers. It's not easy being here.
Right.
And like, I even actually had to text Isaiah last night, and I was like, I am struggling right now. Like, this is the first time that I've wanted to drink. I'm like trying to talk myself out of it. And it was really fucking hard last night.
I can imagine. But you did it.
But I did it.
But you did it, and we're so happy.
Yes. So, and I know that you, part of your networking to come here was to acquire a bunch of non-alcoholic beverages,
Yes.
in which we found out one had like, what, 22 grams of sugar in it?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of really good mocktails, non-alcoholics, near beers, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, but there's a lot. It's like they kind of just replace the alcohol with the sugar. And so that was the thing too, because the first month, not everybody, but like a big group of people that I knew that stopped drinking were like, oh, I lost a bunch of weight. Like instantly, like when I quit drinking, I was like, oh my God, maybe I can lose all of this. Except I was drinking a shitload of mocktails the whole time with like a year's worth of sugar intake in one can.
While eating chewy candy. And yeah. And so from a pure weight perspective, how do you feel about your body? How have you felt about your body over the years? How do you feel about your body right now? Like, you have an interesting relationship with your body, different than many other people.
I mean, I really do, because here's the funny thing is that, like, I hear so many, like, women in particular, talk about their body in such a negative way, and I get it, but I've just not always had the biggest issue with my body. Like, my body has kind of been this thing that has gotten me like through life. Like, I've always thought I was this pretty girl and all that kind of stuff. And like I was saying before, tried to do
We tried to do it the first time.
like, yeah, just like looking back and like, okay, I had a big bum and I was curvy when I was younger, but like I thought that I must have been bigger. And so when J-Lo came out, I was like, yay, a big girl. And like, that's so funny. But it's not funny. It's sad, actually, to think that that's where society was at. But I still didn't really like it just wasn't such a struggle. And now it's harder for me because like, see myself in pictures and I'm like, oh my God, like it just happens so quickly. And I'm like, wow, like, I don't like is that Isaiah hate. Like,
oh yeah, that's such a common occurrence.
There's a lot of what we've talked about, like a lot of like even a lot of our guests on have all kind of had the same thing, is that when you don't pay attention to your weight until one day you either see a picture of yourself when you were younger, or you all of a sudden like really look in the mirror and go, oh damn.
Yeah, for me it's like a picture from the side or behind, like a photograph, because when I look in the mirror I look at all the parts that I like to look at.
I can't.
And I think, ooh, I look pretty good today. And then I see from like the side, I'm like, oh, I don't like it when it sticks out like that. Please stop. And yeah, that's a where when I walk by a mirror and you're like, oh, who's that? Oh, I'm the problem. But yeah, no, I think that's a pretty common occurrence for anybody who's struggled with their weight at all. In terms of, I mean, I met you today, but I'm so proud of you and everything that you've accomplished. And I just, you are obviously a truly incredible person.
I am.
It's humble too.
And modesty is clearly your best quality.
Clearly.
I'm the best at modesty.
No, for sure. I think with when it comes to weight in general, we all kind of struggle with how we look at ourselves, which I think is a great topic for our next episode.
It is, but we're not quite there yet. When we talk
quite.
about addiction and things like that, there's a certain behavior that goes along with it, and it's very much. And I've been in this with food and with alcohol to a certain extent, but with food especially, where I almost go into oblivion, and everything's fun. I'm working on it, everything's great, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to eat at Wendy's and then McDonald's and then Dairy Queen, and then I'm going to eat a bag of chips and a package of licorice when I get home, and all of a sudden, what have I done? And it's obviously self-medicating for something, some mental crisis of some kind.
Well, and it's the same thing because the same chemicals go off with any type of addiction that there is. Food is a big one too, because it's the quick reward. Like you're looking for something, like you said, there's some, probably like a mental struggle with it. And you're looking for whatever that is to kind of be fixed or feel good or whatever right in the moment. And food that's not the greatest for you will do that for you.
And one of the things when you're battling any addiction, like whatever. And this is why you've done the important work. You're doing the important work as in dealing with whatever the underlying is. So, and some of it will unpack easy. Some of it, like it's as you know, I don't know why I'm talking. Let me mansplain addiction to you.
Yeah, but it's like, again, like in AA or any readings like that, it doesn't matter, AA, whatever it is that you to help you get through things, they'll always say that, like, it doesn't matter if it's sex, it doesn't matter if it's food, it doesn't matter if it's alcohol, it doesn't matter if it's like whatever it is for you, it's all addiction. And like, it's just kind of, I'm just going to say the word cool. Yeah. It is kind of cool though. Like you talk to other people, it's like, no, your addiction isn't alcohol, but it's food, but you still completely understand what it is that I'm going through. It's like if I think that I absolutely need to have that drink and you think that you absolutely need to have, I don't know what your go-to is, but
yeah, I changed.
Yeah.
It's the mentality as opposed to the actual self. It's the hiding and the doing it by myself in my car so nobody can. Not even if it's the same food, even if I go have a burger and fries at Big Tide, find an Isaiah's place, and eat in public, and it's my meal. Is it the healthiest choice that day? But it's very different than the midnight drive to McDonald's eating fries after I've already had 3 squares, and I'm just filling a void with something because I'm bored, sad, tired, happy. What insert
Whatever
emotion here?
Yeah.
and I have seen that addiction play out. I lived with someone who's an alcoholic for about a year, and it did not play out well. And when you mentioned the sugar, I remember every time he'd think, "Hey, I'm going to stop drinking." Oh my God, I'd buy a lot of candy for him because he was like filling that void. Because your body craves things. There's chemicals, and your body is an interesting thing, which is going to be so interesting when we talk to the endocrinologist about like how we replenish things and how to kind of circumvent that from a health perspective. And I just don't know the answers because ultimately, not that smart. But I certainly don't know medicine or body toxicology and things like that. But just the same, to your point, Alisha and Isaiah, that addiction mentality is true no matter what the addiction, and without treating the underlying issue, it'll creep back one way or another.
And I think the other piece is having a community to help you. Like you have, what's the group that you typically do? Something. What's the group you typically are? I can't remember that.
So shout out to She
Walks
Canada.
Sorry.
We. Oh, yeah, She Walks Canada. It just popped up on Instagram one day. That day that I woke up in the morning and said I need help, that popped up on Instagram.
Wow. They're not listening.
I know. But thanks. Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say that, and I say it like almost every time. The groups are, well, my group, the one that I liked going to, is finished now, but we started our own sober lit, like sober literature group after.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, but I say it like I swear if I didn't have that. And here's the funny thing is that I kept going, okay, fine. Why do I drink? Well, I drink because I'm sad. Okay, fine. Well, ask myself again, why? Well, I drink because I'm lonely. Like I feel really lonely. And I don't have any like family or anybody out there kind of a thing, right? It's like, okay, so then fine. If I don't want to feel lonely, I couldn't figure out for whatever reason what the opposite of loneliness was. And then somebody said it, like it's connection, it's community. And I was like, oh, and that's what made it so easy because you can talk to other people about it. You know what I mean? Like your partners or your family or your friends. And like they want to be supportive. Again, doesn't matter what your addiction is. But if they're not going through it themselves, they're never going to understand. And a lot of the stuff that they say thinking that they're being helpful is super irritating. You know what I mean? Like
You can do it.
you can do it. You're so brave. Don't reach for the bottle. You don't need that hamburger. Live, laugh, love. Like, get all the way the hell out of here. But like, thanks for trying to be nice. But then you can just have, like, you and Isaiah can talk to each other and know exactly what it is that you're going through and like laugh about it if you want.
Yeah.
You know?
Some things are funny and they're morbidly funny.
Yeah.
But some things are funny.
Yeah. And some things are just like, but yeah, I know that's hard. And you know that that person actually knows how hard it is.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Community is definitely a huge part of any going through anything. Like that part of the reason why we started this podcast was just to have a check-in with for me and Kate and kind of be responsible to other people and stuff like that. And that's kind of a big thing is having that net of responsibility, not just to yourself, but other people as well.
And not wanting to let people feel for. On that note, like Isaiah tried to transition earlier and I commandeered and because I had another question. We are going to have Alisha stick around for part 2 of this episode. I've decided we're calling it part 2. And we're going to talk about where Alisha touched on J-Lo earlier in our own relationship with each other's bodies. And our own bodies about body image.
Body image.
I'm really good at words.
Great at words. Yeah. So we're part 2. We'll touch on body image, but that will be next week come out. But until then, where can people find you on the internet, Kate?
They can find me on TikTok at Fat Caitlin, and maybe I'll update that sometime soon. And on Instagram at Kated or Kate D, and on Facebook, Caitlin D, and we're Kate and Isaiah Living Large on Facebook and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at the Caitlin D.
Awesome.
Where can you find you, Isaiah?
I am at Maritime Brews on all of the social medias, including X and Threads, which is the Instagram one. And Alisha,
I haven't sewn that yet.
You haven't gone there yet? And Alisha, where can people find you on the internet?
Only on Instagram. And it's Alisha with an A.
Alisha with an A. But we thank you for listening this week. And don't forget to stop in next week. And of course, if you're listening on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe so you can get updated when we post next week's episode. But until then, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.